What's up, guys? Welcome to a new video of the ynggpodcast. Today, we're going to be talking about another second round matchup between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, which is going to be our final uh, second round prediction video. So, the champions have been eliminated. The Vegas Golden Knights were eliminated in 7 games by the Dallas Stars, and the Winnipeg Jets fall to the Colorado Avalanche 4-1. So, they lose in 5 games. So, just a quick summary before we start and get into the Dallas and Colorado Avalanche um, matchup. The Winnipeg Jets. Look, guys, I apologize about putting Winnipeg on a pedestal and really having high hopes. That was just the Canadian in me, rooting for another Canadian team. But I really thought, the Winnipeg Jets had it this year. They had the likes of Tyler Toffoli, Sean Monahan. They're well coached by Rick Bowness, who, just retired today. So, congrats on a great career, like 38 years of coaching. So, congrats to him. But, Connor Hellebuck and lack of goal scoring, that was the problem in that round. And, you look at Colorado and, after game one, I really thought it was game over. They lose 7-6. Georgiev looked horrible. And after that, games 1-5, Georgiev bounced back like instantly. So game two, they win 5-2. He only concedes 2 goals. In game three, he concedes 2 goals again. They win 6-2. In game four, he concedes only one. They win 5-1. And in game five, they win 6-3. Only concedes 3 goals. Look, if you look at Colorado's, top pointers, they're all guys who won the Stanley Cup. They have championship pedigree. And, for me, the MVP has to go to, Valery Nichushkin, who scored 7 goals and had a hat trick in one of these games in the series. So he was pivotal. And, McKinnon is always McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar, like the big three in Colorado. And Arturi Lehkonen continues to prove that he is a fantastic playoff performer. He always steps up to the plate. He showed that with the Montreal Canadiens. He continues to show that with the Colorado Avalanche, and he helped them win the Stanley Cup, 2 years ago. So, look, they added a lot of pieces. A lot of people, including myself, said, well, what's going to happen? Do they have enough chemistry built to take this to the next round? Because Winnipeg's been pretty much the same team the whole year. They added 2 guys, that fit their system perfectly in Monahan and Toffoli, even though I thought Toffoli was pretty disappointing in the playoffs compared to Monahan. So, yeah, like I really thought that Colorado added quantity over quality, and I was wrong. They added quantity and quality, and it worked out. Casey Middlestat, they made a fantastic hockey move there, and they get rid of Bowen Byram, and he was pivotal in the series. 6 points in 5 games. Even Zach Parise, who has been a shell of himself this whole season, hasn't been that great. He stepped up to the plate too. He knows this is his last chance. He stated before the playoffs started that he will retire whether he wins the cup or not at the end of this playoff series. So he steps it up. He knows this is his last chance. Colorado did everything in their path to win. Then you have the Dallas Stars versus Vegas Golden Knights. They were down 2-0 Dallas, and I had Vegas, Vegas losing in 7, Dallas winning in 7, obviously, and they really disappointed me. I saw Dallas as the most structured team in the NHL in terms of their defensive defenseman, offensive defenseman, their starting goaltender, and their forwards. They had everything, everything. They were a total package. And after going down 2-0, losing game one 4-3, and game two 3-1, I'm like, wow, this is gonna be the upset here. And what I mean by upset, meaning like Dallas was a top 3 team in the league, in regards of what people saw in them, and they were gonna disappoint everybody. And people were saying, Vegas, the quote unquote cheaters, they got Stone back, they got Petrangelo back, they're millions over the cap, and this is how they're gonna take down Dallas. Well, that was not the case because game 3 was the turning point. They win 3-2 in overtime. They win the following game, game 4, 4-2. The game after that, they win 3-2. They take the lead in the series. And then they lose game 6 2-0. And then in game 7, they close it out. They beat the defending champs 2-1. And the MVP in that series goes to Wyatt Johnson. So, Zach, I will throw it to you. What are your thoughts essentially of this matchup and what you've seen from the two victorious teams heading into the second round?
Well, I'll start with what I see with Colorado. This is a team that was generating in all 5 games. They scored 5 goals or more, so they were generating flurries of offense, and Winnipeg did not have an answer for them. They couldn't keep the puck out of their own net, but they did not have the level of stardom of Nathan McKell-McCarr, who's practically plays defenseman and winger simultaneously. They didn't have an answer for those guys offensively, and the Avalanche basically ran the scoreboard in those games, and it was a very easy series for them beyond game one, like you mentioned. Um, Look, Colorado is a powerhouse, and like you mentioned, they have the pedigree, but this is also a team now that has their decor healthy for the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have, you got Samuel Girard back. You got, Kilmacar, Devin Taves, your first pairing. That's a lock. They added Sean Walker at the deadline, who, was supposed to be the replacement in terms of impact of if via, losing Bowen Byram. Had 0 points in the first series, but that's another guy to keep an eye on, and who may add another echelon to their already potent offense on this team. And their first line is their first line. They, like I mentioned, Nathan McKinnon, Val Nichushkin, Mikko Rantanen. That is as dynamic as it gets in the NHL. Casey Middlestop did his job as well. 6 points in the first series. Arturi Lehkonen, perennial playoff performer. They've got good depth. Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Yakov Trenin got involved with a goal in that series as well. They'll definitely need more from their bottom six, but this is definitely a team. If you compare rosters with Dallas, I know we talk about how stacked Dallas is from top to bottom. Other than goaltending, where I think Jake Ottinger is considerably better than Georgiev, and who has proven that on a more consistent basis. These are two teams that are complete juggernauts, right? Like these are two teams that have dynamic forwards, that have defensemen who can move the puck, that have physical defensemen, and who are able to to dish it, and also to be brutal in terms of their physicality, but are also able to pitch in offensively as well. So the thing I'll say about Dallas is that they were able to battle adversity in round one. They lost the two first games to Vegas. Yes, they could have been down 3-0 3-0 in the series. In game three, they won that game in overtime. That was crucial for them. And then they basically took the next two. Vegas got one back in a tightly contested game in game six, where Noah Hannafin broke the deadlock in the third period. And then in game seven, they won another close game. But for the majority of the series, they were outplaying Vegas. They were outplaying a team that, like you said, millions over the salary cap, loaded up with adding Noah Hannafin, Thomas Hertl at the deadline, most notably, and also having guys like Mark Stone, who was bearing an injury, quote unquote. I don't want to say that his injury was fake, but the fact that he came back for game one of the playoffs leads you to believe something else.
I mean, look, Luca and I covered the first matchup series between Vegas and Dallas, and we said, look, whether if it's true or false in terms of his injury status, any other team could do the same thing as well. So people
Yes,
complaining about that, your team could do that
you
as well.
can't,
So there's
because
a
Vegas,
loophole. You take
yes,
advantage of it.
absolutely, because they're playing within their right to do that. But despite that, the team with the second most points in the NHL this year, the Dallas Stars, proved why they were exactly that, because they proved that they could get it done on the ice, and not just by maneuvering the cap to try to promote the best team possible. They showed through their play this year, and by great coaching by Pete DeBoer as well, managing this group, that they are absolutely legit. And by knocking out the former Stanley Cup winners in round one, they're a force to be reckoned with in the second series. Look, I think, like I said, like I'm very high on Colorado as well. I'm gonna throw it back to you in a second, but I think this series is at least gonna go in 6 games. But I think more likely than not, it's gonna go into 7, because here we have two teams that could very well be teams that are in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Look, if Dallas had to go through Vegas and not Colorado, and let's say they do beat Colorado and Edmonton wins, and let's say they go to the finals and they beat Edmonton and they win the cup, this could arguably be the hardest path we've seen in years to winning the Stanley Cup. And
yes,
that arguably makes them one of the best championship teams ever. If they're able to pull that off, wow. And another thing to note as well, Joe Pavelski, who is so pivotal in the past as a playoff performer, had 0 points in the first round versus Vegas, top-notch team, and they were able to still come out victorious. This team is scary, very scary. Wyatt Johnson, fantastic series. The fact that you have guys like Matt Duchene and Sagi on your third line, that's how deep you are as a team. And I've stated that multiple times with Dallas. You add Chris Tanev. He's not there to get you points. He's there to block shots, you know, win board battles in the corner. And he was +6. He's exactly as advertised. They got exactly what they wanted. And now we have Pete DeBoer as a coach who is 8-0 in Game 7 matchups. Once again, is victorious. And we have something that people are not really talking much about, but a Ryan Suter versus a Zach Parise reunion. But in this case, it's them facing off against each other. Both who played many years in Minnesota and both have yet to win a Stanley Cup.
yep.
I believe that these two teams have what it takes to win the Stanley Cup and have a chance to make the finals. I think that even though Edmonton is a fantastic team, and I do see them beating the Vancouver Canucks, in my eyes, you have Colorado Avalanche who are deep and they have championship pedigree, but you have the Dallas Stars who, were down 2-0 and they have what it takes now, winning that series and beating a juggernaut in Vegas. The momentum is high, the team morale is high, but obviously some guys are gonna have to step up because I do believe that if they want to win the Stanley Cup, Joe Pavelski is gonna have to be better. Matt Duchene's gonna have to be better in terms of production offensively. They cannot rely just on the first line, and they cannot just rely on Wyatt Johnson. I know Evgeny Dandanov had a really good series as well offensively, but they need guys to step up offensively.
Yes,
Like
it takes 4
so,
lines to win a Stanley Cup, but let me ask you this: who do you think is going to win this series, and why do you think this team is going to have the edge in this one?
I'm
Tough
look.
call.
It's gonna be a tough call, but ultimately I gotta stick to my guns. I gotta stick to what I did in my bracket. Dallas Stars in 7 games. They have everything, and the only way they lose is like what I mentioned before. If guys like Matt Duchene and Pavelski and even Rupe Hintz as well, if these guys do not step up, Colorado takes this series. And if Gorgiev continues to play the way he was playing in the later half of the first round versus Winnipeg, they win this series. But if Gorgiev gets exposed again, like we've seen in the past, Ottinger's on top of his game, Matt Duchene is back, Logan Stankoven continues to do what he did when he got called up by Dallas. You have Rupe Hintz back in it. You have Pavelski back in it, and everyone else in the top 6 continues to be productive. Dallas takes this series, in my opinion. But I would like to just show some, analytics in terms of the playoffs. Look, Colorado, as of right now, as it stands, they are the best playoff team. They were averaging, 5.60 goals per game. They They had
which
the
is
most.
insane. Which is
Yeah,
insane for a playoff matchup.
exactly. And considering that Connor Hellebuck was supposed to be this, celebrated Vesna goaltender that was gonna, shut down Colorado's offense, which he did the complete opposite. They had 71 points as a team. Okay, their power play not too shabby, 37.5. Okay, one of the best. Their penalty kill pretty solid, 76.9. So like you're just looking at these stats, and this shows why Colorado won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, and they still have the main core intact. And look, like you mentioned before with their team, both these teams, they have hard hitting defensemen, they have defensive defensemen, they have offensive forwards, they have defensive forwards. And you look at Colorado's back end, you look at Dallas's back end, they have guys that could put the puck in the net and also like give hits and block shots. Josh Manson, what a surprise! In the first round, showed what he was capable of doing offensively, but it was good defensively as well. Jack Johnson and Sean Walker, they're there for defensive support. Then you have your more offensive players in Taves, Makar, and Girard. And in terms of the Dallas Stars, I would say their back end is more defensive than offensive. But when you have Miro Heiskanen, you know that and Thomas Harley, that's fantastic. And Ryan Suter stepped up offensively. He had 2 points, playing on the third line. You know, Niles Lundqvist, another guy who's good offensively. And then you have Lindell and Tanev, who are more known for their defensive, strengths. I would say in terms of defense, like it's pretty even. And like we cannot discredit Miro Heiskanen. This is going to be a Heiskanen and Makar battle on the back end. These are arguably the top five best defensemen in the league. Makar obviously would be number one. Miro Heiskanen, I would have him ranged from 3 to 5. Or, it really depends the day of the week. Okay, so and in terms of goaltending, I think Ottinger is fantastic. Gorgiev, it's either night or day. We never know what we're getting from him. So, those are the things to look out for. But in terms of offense, I would say both these teams are even. But the big players in Colorado stepped up in the first round, and they want a second championship ring. In terms of Dallas, they had some unsung heroes who stepped up, but they're going to need their core players to step up as well.
Yeah. So what I'll say is I will it's obviously hard to predict the series that you haven't seen the game one of yet, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you evaluate the dynamic of the series. But what I'll say is that I'm inclined to give the edge to Colorado based on the fact that I think their core of players could elevate to a level that is rare we've seen in the NHL ever. Cale Makar is probably one of the most dynamic defensemen we've ever seen. Nathan MacKinnon has been out of this world for the better part of his career. Mikko Rantanen is another big physically dominant player who's a consistent 90-point guy and who's the type of profile that elevates as well during the playoffs. Same thing with Val Nichushkin, is absolutely massive, skilled, could protect the puck, is mobile. These guys are scary, right? And if the pressure is on Dallas's decor to be able to shut down these guys in some capacity, because you'll never be able to shut down Nathan MacKinnon entirely. He's just that damn good. But can you at least minimize the impact they have on a game to allow your side of the offense to basically be able to put up the goals needed to elevate your team and to win games against Colorado? Because Colorado, when they're at their best, they're scoring in bunches, and they do it most of the time. So you have to be able to shut these guys down. Miro Heiskanen is going to be a key factor in this series because he's going to be the guy who is going to be able to have the most kind of impact in slowing down the Stars for Colorado. Obviously, Eza Lindell and Chris Tanev are, you pay them to do that. They're shutdown defensemen, and this is going to be their biggest task at hand yet this season. But I just think Colorado have done it before. Their top guys are so good. Obviously, Georgiev has to be, he's got to be consistent in this series and at least be able to steal you a game or two for them. Um, but yeah, I think Colorado is all respect to Dallas, they have all the components, but can do they have a player like Nathan McKinnon? And do they have a defenseman like Cale Makar? Miro Heiskanen is very close, but I don't think they'll have an answer for that.
Well, look, I'll say one thing about Colorado, that they've been so successful at winning games even when their goaltending was garbage, because they're able to freaking score so many goals. So those goal scoring outweighs the amount of goals they let in. And we saw that in game one. Even though Georgiev was horrible and let in 7 goals, they
They
still
scored
managed to
6.
score 6 goals,
Yeah.
even in their worst game. So, yes, like this is very hard to predict, but like at the end of the day, like you look at Jake Ottinger, like he elevated his game and he's always been like the moment I saw Jake Ottinger play so well versus the Calgary Flames 2 years ago in the playoffs. Even though they lost that series, that's when I knew this guy was going to be fantastic moving forward. And every playoffs, he hasn't disappointed me yet. Even when he has bad games, he always comes back stronger. He's had more good games than bad games. And this year in the playoffs, and after the first round, he finished top 5 with a goal against average of 1.95. And in terms of his save percentage, he finished fifth as well with a .925. So higher than Georgiev. Georgiev is not even in the top 10 for both categories. Okay. So, yeah, there's that to take into consideration as well. But like you said, they have like Colorado's core is not only the same core that they've had when they won the championship, but they're able to elevate their game where it puts a lot of pressure on the opposing team to really struggle to contain them. And will they be able to contain them? That's the thing. Is Ottinger and Dallas's defense able to contain Colorado? I think the answer is yes. I think if there's going to be one team that's going to be able to contain them, it's the Dallas Stars. If we're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, I think, I would obviously give, even though that would be a close series too, if that would to be the Western Conference final, I would give the edge to Colorado because I think there's something about Edmonton that they don't have in terms of Dallas. I think they're better defensively, even though in the first round, Edmonton did surprise me of how well they played defensively. But again, they faced a very underwhelming Los Angeles Kings team. And I'm sorry, I don't want to upset any Edmonton Oilers fans, but LA was not, the greatest playoff team, and they were by far the worst LA team that they faced in the last 3 years. Year one and year two, when they faced them in the first round, LA was better compared to this year's LA. That's all I'll say about that. But, at the end of the day, this is going to be a 7-game series. I do think Dallas, does step it up. And I told you my points before and why I think they would be able to beat Colorado. But I was wrong about Colorado. But I'm acknowledging it and I'm saying what Colorado has done well and what they need to continue to do in order to, win this series once again and go to the Western Conference final. And I
Yeah.
think both teams, honestly at this point, I think it's the flip of a coin. Either way, I think you're still going to get a great team heading into the Western Conference finals. And I think these are going to be two teams that could potentially go to the Stanley Cup final, unless Edmonton, really shows that what they were capable of doing in the first round is what they're going to be doing moving forward until the Stanley Cup final. I'm not sold yet on Edmonton completely. I still need to see what they're going to do to Vancouver and how they're going to match up against a team like Dallas or Colorado. Then, if they're capable of beating a team like that, I think I'll have them as my Stanley Cup final favorites. But as of right now, I do have Florida as my Stanley Cup favorite, and I'm sticking to that. And you could obviously check my reasons and past videos for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, Florida is definitely was definitely impressive in round one, but there's one thing I'll add on Dallas is that the strength of their offense was how balanced it was in terms of production in the regular season. So the key for them in this series against Colorado is like Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski, the Stank, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson. You need to get production from all these guys in this series. And that's very possible because they did it throughout the year. I think they're the team that had the most or 60-point players in the regular season. So it's something that they were accustomed to. All those guys have to be able to produce because, Colorado, like we said, in this playoffs, in this Stanley Cup playoffs, they haven't scored less than 5 goals in a game. So you have to be in games where Jake Ottinger is not in a favorable position to steal a game for you, because he's been fantastic, but against this Colorado team, you can't expect that for him to be able to neutralize them every game. So their offense has always got to be on par with Colorado's, and the way that they do it is they score in bunches, but with a bunch of different contributors. That's been their strength this year. So I'd say for Dallas that could be a key for them in this series. For it to go their way, you can't have another series where a Joe Pavelski doesn't get a point, Stankoven doesn't score, or Tyler Seguin doesn't score as well. These guys have to contribute, or else it could very well end in Colorado's favor in probably 5 or 6 games, because Colorado's not scared to stomp on you, but you need to have to step up to Colorado. You need to have an answer for them, because they're going to play their way. Their style works 90% of the time. So what are you going to do to prevent that and basically combat it from your point of things?
The same thing that was said about Edmonton in the previous video will be said again about the Dallas Stars. This is the best version of the Dallas Stars I've seen in a very long time. Joe Pavelski, wouldn't be surprised if he retires after this season. So now was the time to win. Matt Duchene is on an expiring deal. He only signed a 1-year deal. Ben and Seguin are not getting any younger. This is the time. You have the future and, I would say, the past/present on this roster. If there's going to be a time for Dallas Stars to win the cup, this is the year, to satisfy both parties, the old guys and the young guys. So there's no excuse. Like, they got to get it done. They showed it in the season. The guys need to step up offensively. And Roope Hintz needs to step up offensively. Like, he needs to. And, I'm not going to put too much pressure on Stankoven because he's young. But, he out of the gates, as soon as he joined Dallas, he was a force to be reckoned with. And he needs to continue to show that as well. And, Joe Pavelski, his age catching up to him, playoffs, is he able to compete? I still think he can, but he needs to be better in this series. And, if they need a bounce back in terms of, gaining more points offensively, this is the season. This is the series, because Georgiev lets in a lot of goals. If you want these guys to bounce back and get back in form, this is the series, because he's not the best goalie ever. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. So we'll see what happens. But those are our reasons, and hopefully you respect our predictions. It's nice to have a prediction video where you have two guys, going with two different teams as opposed to agreeing with each other. Even though, sometimes we do agree with the same team, we have different reasons behind why we chose those teams to win the series. But we'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Obviously this is just our opinion, so please don't hate us. We'd like to hear, why you think Dallas would win, why Colorado would win, and then how many games will this series last. And Zach, do you have anything to add before we conclude?
Yeah, well, if I just wanted to add on the fact that with this construct of a team, this is the last chance that I'd have, because we live in a world with a salary cap. And, you mentioned Pavelski retiring, but I think for guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin as well, being on this team, this is their last chance. And with this group together, they have to pay Duchene in the off season. There are some guys I'm definitely missing who are RFAs as well on this team. They have to. This is the best it's going to get as a roster with the amount of experience, skill, youth, everything. This is the best that they're going to get. So they really have to make the most out of this opportunity. But I do think, Colorado is just, they're out of this world. They did it 2 years ago. For the past couple of years, they've always gotten close. They know how to get it done. they have the high end skill that really could take them out of any vulnerable situation. So I'm gonna stick with my pick being Colorado.
Yeah, and I said that Vegas versus the Dallas Stars was the most anticipated and probably the tightest first round matchup, which it was in my opinion. And yeah, you could make a debate and say Toronto and Boston could have been better or equally as good because of the history and because of like almost blowing a 3-1 lead and forcing a game 7 in Toronto's favor, but Boston winning in OT. You could say that was the best series, but I still stick to my guns and say that Vegas versus Dallas was the most anticipated and the best, most evenly matched series in the first round. And I think the same thing continues in the second round. I think the Dallas Stars versus the Colorado Avalanche is the most anticipated second round series and the tightest matchup. It's gonna be the hardest one to decipher, who's gonna come out victorious in this matchup. But guys, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for watching.